Good afternoon. How's everyone's food coma doing? I thought that lunch was terrific. I mean, so far so good, right? My name's Steve Dion. I'm with a company called Optum. I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff today. I'm not the kind of guy that loves flipping through PowerPoints. So while I do have a PowerPoint and there are slides, and my guess is you'll probably have a copy of it available to you, the action is really going to be in the demo of what I show in the Domo tool itself. Cool? So everyone down with that? Everyone getting PowerPointed to death? All right, good. All right, cool. So let's see if I can figure this out. All right, so who is this guy, Steve Dion, and where is he from? So that's my official title. I work for a company called Optum, and if you're not familiar with the company, maybe subliminally, there have been signs that have told you that you should be paying attention to them. And just maybe you happen to notice that there's a couple of championship teams involved with these pictures. So I happen to live in the Boston area, and we are corporate sponsors of a couple of teams, Boston Red Sox and the New England Patriots. And what's really fun for us, at least at the office that I'm in Boston, you can see the sign kind of blurred out there in the background. We're literally right behind home plate at Fenway Park, so it's kind of fun. My background, kind of circuitous to getting into business intelligence. I was an economics major, history double major, and ended up going into software sales for a good period of time. Ended up working for a business intelligence company that I kind of liked and decided I wanted to get into product management. So went and got my MBA, came out, and turned myself into a product manager, first working for GE Healthcare IT, and then progressing into Aetna, and now at Optum. So who is Optum, you might ask? Well, we are part of a Herculean-sized company called United Health Group. United Health Group is literally Fortune 5 at this point. In fact, some of this information is a little old in terms of revenue. But United Health Group is primarily split up into two very large individual organizations. The one I'm with is on the right, but the one on the left is probably the one you recognize. That's United Healthcare, single largest health insurance company in the United States. And then Optum is a technology services company. We are the internal IT organization, as well as a panoply of other businesses, some of which I'll detail here in a second. Very simply put, the mission is, helping people to lead healthier lives and helping make the health system work better for everyone. It's really the second half of that mission, which is Optum, right? And so we're a technology firm. Optum by itself is somewhere over 120,000 people now. Pretty crazy. All right. So a little bit about who we serve, who are our customers, the people that we sell to. So 4 out of every 5 providers, literally 80% of all U.S. Of hospitals have a relationship to Optum in some form or fashion. 4 of the 5 Fortune 100 companies insure their employees through us in some form or capacity. 3 out of 4 health plans actually do business with us as well, primarily on the Optum side. We have over 80 life science organizations that we resell a lot of clinical data to. And then lastly, we have relationships to, 50 governments. Man, that feels like we're just one short of everyone, right? So quite a bit, and there you can see the number of consumers we have total. 125 million is the estimate. Okay, so the organization that I'm in is called Optim Health Technology, and we are, one part of this Optum thing. And as you might guess from the name Optim Health, the customers that we serve relate to our Optim Health business. And Optum Health itself is an organization that's looking to integrate healthcare delivery with a particular bias around moving care to the outpatient, or a technical term here, ambulatory setting. So anything outside of the hospital, right? Is there a way that we can move surgeries from being in a large forbidding hospital into more of an outpatient, same-day type surgery center scenario. It's things like that on the specialty side. It's also having a relationship to the primary care physician. So where these people are really our quarterbacks of our healthcare, Optum has made a very large investment in primary care. And today we have over 3,000 physicians that are employed in this organization, and about 30,000 that are contracted in some form or fashion. So that's a little bit about where we're at, the types of customers that we serve. In this case, this is the business that the IT organization that I'm part of supports today. We're about to do some demo, so I know you're getting cagey around this PowerPoint like me, right? And guys, the time's not working here, just FYI. So why am I here? What am I gonna do here in the presentation? I'm hoping to show you that really all the work that we've been focused on is to help build credibility with our customer. And I think I hear that everywhere. It's pervasive at this conference, right? It's all about building credibility with your stakeholders and ensuring that the stuff that you're sharing with them is valid, it's up to date, and it's meaningful for them to pay attention to. Otherwise, let's face it, you're going to get redeployed into something less exciting. I am going to share with you one of the data science methods that is available in the Domo platform now. It's called cluster analysis. I'll tell you about the use case that we have for implementing that. And then hopefully you could see that we use all of this in a sort of storytelling fashion. I didn't realize it when I wrote the slide that while storytelling is a beta feature, I don't have it implemented in any of these dashboards today, so sorry about that, but we're trying to get to it. All right, so about the project, we were called in basically to improve the credibility, right, and trust that we have with the business, since we, like a lot of other IT organizations, have had runaway costs. Not only runaway costs, but runaway timelines, right? So our businesses have some really mission critical type applications that they're relying upon the IT organization to help solve, and historically that's not been the case. So enter in the advent of a new BI tool dashboard to do something about it, and our mission was to take all of these siloed data pools, if you would, and then try to create some actionable information based out of it. Some of the things, some of the sort of high-level capabilities are sort of indicated in the little wheel on the right. Real focus here, as you can see, on sort of operational type metrics, though also a call out to some of the more, Agile-based things in application type domains. Fancy graphic for this wasn't my graphic, it was another guy who did this before me, looking to make sense of the process that we were trying to automate through these series of dashboards. So how are we engaging with our customers? What are the different pieces of the cycle that we want to show them value for their investment in our services? So it kind of begins with this concept of an intake process. And boy, like so many organizations, we're stuck with having like 25 different ways that we can get notified that a customer has interest in our stuff. So that could be an email, it could be a phone call, it could be a sidebar conversation. We learned pretty early on that our organization at large lacked a singular enterprise intake process, one that was reliable and we could point people to regularly. Execution, of course, look, that's all about the Agile delivery process itself. So once we have our definitions in place, and we know what are the goals that we're aiming to achieve on an outcome basis, this is tracking all of the sausage as it goes through the mill, right? So it's trying to instrument the Agile delivery process. And the last one, and the one that, boy, we still are very much struggling with, is business value. Who here in IT has trouble showing business value once in a while? Anybody? Yeah, right? I mean, this is it. This is the tough stuff. I'm going to touch on it a little bit and share with you a little bit about what we're doing. I don't have stuff to show you definitively, and I certainly haven't done cluster analysis to figure this out. But it's part of our charter, and frankly, this is the exciting part for me, because I see that, boy, if there's a way that we can solve this, we could put our organization in a much better strategic place as a result. And last but not least, sort of the underlying piece to all this is we got to make our customers happy. Our NPS, well, first of all, United Health Group has a huge NPS focus. For those unaware of what NPS is, it stands for Net Promoter Score, right? Real famous customer satisfaction measurement system. And we have a very audacious goal in the company to hit NPS of 70. Who here thinks that a predominantly health insurance company has a high NPS? Right, nobody, right? All right, nobody got that wrong. We have a problem in the market, right? The perception is that we're difficult to deal with, we're inflexible, we oftentimes don't arm our patients or our members with information to make better decisions. So it's an audacious, I think, really smart goal that our CEO has put forward. We too get measured on NPS as the IT organization that's part of this big thing. And guess what? IT doesn't score well. So this is part of our mission as well, and we are indeed supporting NPS in some of our dashboards. Right, source system integration. This is a subset of the types of data that we are bringing into our Domo platform today. Again, I kind of organized it in the buckets of focused in terms of the stages of delivery that we have with our customers. So on the left-hand side, under intake, we have applications that you may or may not be aware of. AHA is a product management platform, something that's great for product road mapping. ServiceNow is very much, the incident reporting, problem tickets, help desk type stuff. PPM Optics is an old NICU application that CA Agile, Computer Associates owns. It's a timekeeping system. And then lastly, if any of you attended some of the other presentations, you know that SharePoint's a bugaboo to get data out of. One of my peers was talking about it earlier, and it's actually his organization that's responsible for finding a way to break data out of SharePoint, which is kind of funny. Generally speaking, it wasn't built that way, but our information security people decided to lock it down in such a way as to make it really hard for us to get data out. So that's intake. On the execution side, Rally is a application also known as CA Agile Central now. That is our primary Agile delivery platform. PeopleSoft is a HR application now owned by Oracle. Oracle has a financial database, and then there's another financial app in there called Empower. And lastly, under business value, we've started streaming in data from these four sources, one of which you won't recognize, LearnSource. It's just a component of PeopleSoft on the HR platform. And then you can see some of the things down below under satisfaction. Why are we using Domo instead of some of the other competitive offerings out there? And what is the use case for using Domo, I should say? So as I said, it's about building credibility and trust, right? But boy, I'd be shocked if you guys are in IT and or you're familiar with IT and you know that these aren't the same questions being asked, right? So what's going to be built with that big investment of money that you've given me? When's it going to deliver? And how much is it going to cost? These are problems that don't go away with the use of Domo, but it's certainly a good couple of good questions to focus on. On the Agile development side, how can we know what our backlog is? And do we have a release timeline in which to show that we have some dependability about those various releases that are coming up? Finally, on a product, from a project focus standpoint, how do we know what we've done in order to be able to predict where we're going? And again, this is sort of like the timeliness and whether or not we're hitting our budget type discussion that I talked about earlier. So these are the three things that caused us to start up the initiative and things that we've been focused on since. All right, I'm going to skip that. Great. So the question that came up, one of our many use cases. Oh, before I go there, can you guys flip over to the computer for me for a second? Let me give you a view of what this looks like, right? What all we've done, and I'm only going to focus on a couple of individual pieces of it, but I wanted to give you a broad sense as to what our overall dashboard does look like. Again, this isn't it's not the new storytelling dashboard, but you can see it's, the look of it's not so bad, and there's a fair amount of variation in what we're sharing here. Conceptually, we have these categories, or I forget what they're called in Domo. We have these basically categories of cards that we've organized. So in our organization, it's all about people first. This is where we've brought forward HR information. We've brought forward some requisition type data to be able to show in general how stable is the organization, how are we growing over time, what are some of the areas that we need to work to improve. Agile delivery front, this is probably a lot of stuff that folks are familiar with and should resonate. We have some backlog information, a fair amount of agile delivery type metrics. No surprise, being an ops-based focused dashboard, we have stuff that concerns billability of the organization. We have a very high threshold of what's considered acceptable in the organization, hence why you see that on the particular little tachometer here. From a business value standpoint, we've started going in the direction, and I'm gonna slice through that pretty quickly, since that's probably not kosher for public consumption. But we have started to instrument all of our customer-facing websites, all of those applications that we have responsibility for not only development, but also support. And some of the things that we've been doing is pulling in data from Adobe Analytics, and a new application called Pendo, which also I think is a partner of Domo's, doing some of the customer experience tracking on the platform itself. And then last but not least is sort of stability, and this is data that we're getting out of ServiceNow. Great, can we flip back to the presentation, please? All right. So along the way, one of the things that people have been really interested in us unpacking is whether or not there's a way for us to predict the delivery of different agile chunks of work. And like a lot of teams, we've been focused on the basics. We've been focused on bringing in the foundational level data, trying to organize it to provide some practical awareness as to what's available to folks, and then slowly but surely build up our use cases into more and more meaningful and valuable pieces of data. Along came this use case. People wanted to know whether we could predict it, and just so happened to come around the time that I had a team of interns coming in, a team of summer interns, technology interns, primarily computer science interns. And they had a bunch of really well-meaning approaches, right? They didn't suggest linear regression. This was my idea, having had a little bit of stats background. Hey, why don't we just throw linear regression at it and let's see if that works. They, of course, wanted to get into machine learning. So there's this tool out there called scikit-learn. It's a Python application. And then last but not least, we took a look at k-mean square cluster analysis, and as you'll see, that's what we ended up using. As part of the initial exploration of the data, though, man, we came across some real big hurdles. And anyone who knows data, will recognize some of these things. The first is that for this particular type of data, turned out to be extremely subjective. We use, as I mentioned before, a platform called Rally, now known as CA Agile Central. And there's this thing at the feature level called preliminary estimate. Well, preliminary estimate is something that the product owner or product manager uses to inform or estimate the amount of work that is involved in the unit that they've written up and are trying to progress into a body of time of delivery, whether that be a PI or a sprint iteration. So preliminary estimate in many ways is sort of like a Fibonacci type of a concept. It doesn't use 1, 3, 5. It uses, in this case, XS, S, M, L, and XL for those relative sizes. Problem is that the tool itself doesn't give any guidance for how to do that in a way that's very agile and that's fitting with the philosophy. But in practice, this is kind of tough sailing. So let's see, where did I want to go on this one? Could you flip over to the PC for me? All right. So let's see whether or not there's a good correlation between actual feature size versus these preliminary estimates. And this is somewhat representative data. This team, look, sort of a decent correlation where you got the extra small ones on the far left, and then the 7 is the actual user story points that those features delivered at. So that's an average of 7 user story points for the extra smalls. But look, in larges, we got an average of 34. That's interesting. But take a look at how small and mediums are effectively the same. So there's no differentiation between those two. But let's look at the biggest problem area, which is extra large. The extra larges for this particular team ended up being smaller than the small and mediums, right? And quite a bit smaller than the larges. So that doesn't work, right? You can't rely on that. That's one team. Let me show a good one. I don't know how they hit it, right? You look at some of these subjective things and it never works out, but this particular team happens to have done it pretty well. The unfortunate thing here, anyone who's in Agile delivery knows, is that you're trying to actually get your features through with a reasonable number of story points, which is to say a reasonable amount of time in which you can deliver that piece of work. So as you look at this and you contemplate for a second, what is this showing us? Showing us that for these things that they're calling large size features, they average 52 user story points. These are big. Now they're not big as compared to some other teams I'm going to show you, but wow, it's still a red flag. Let me do one more example. Thought I had one that was, yeah, look at that. Same thing. Wow, no differentiation between extra small and small, and then a spike almost 3 times on medium, and then large and extra large are actually smaller than the mediums. Okay? Could we go back to the presentation, please? Complication number 2. Turns out that as these features are going through the grinder, right, through the sausage factory, because it's an agile delivery platform, it turns out that they provide a little bit too much flexibility for knowing where that body of work is in process. So state is the name of the particular field, which has been problematic for us to use. And the reason why state's an issue, and as you can see, you can't quite see it for this, so actually if you want to pop back over to my computer screen for a second. These are features that have been completed. Notice the X values at the bottom of the chart here. Feature ready, final feature review, feature created, feature solutioning, and feature in progress. If you add all of these, I really love especially the one on the far end there. Look at this one. What X value is that? Nothing. no state to even infer what it could possibly be. And by the way, these aren't all small, tiny features. Notice the size of some of these things here. Some of these, some of these color bands, those represent user story points. Some of these are pretty big. On a count basis, 2,000 features in our system back when we started this, this work that were not properly categorized as having been done. Okay, so let's review for a second. Preliminary estimate on the front end. How big is the thing going to be? Not reliable. Number two, state of the feature to see as it's going through the process, how well are we tracking toward done? Also not reliable. Back to the deck, please. So, how can we tell what's been built? How can we see what teams have done? Do we know historically where teams have done their work most of the time? Which is to say, can we use that as a means to either help inform teams to change their pattern and behavior moving forward, or else maybe pat them on the back and say, hey, you're doing a really nice job. So after we tried feeding all this subjective data into scikit-learn and the linear regression model, we weren't getting anything for p-values of any significant. And the scikit-learn thing basically popped back and said, it's like a coin flip is basically what they were saying with any of this data. So pretty useless, right? So what we decided to do in terms of doing something of value with this intern team is to try out the cluster analysis. So k-means clustering, and this is just directly off the Domo site, is a methodology, it's a statistical methodology that's been around for some time, which basically allows you to select the number of buckets that you want to use for clustering. And then what the system will do is it will take all the inputs and then it will categorize them into however many of those buckets you've defined to give you some sense as to distribution. Okay, and I'll show you some of the results here in a second. You might ask why we decided to use some of the same almost like subjective buckets as the preliminary estimate. Well, we felt like, I don't know, 5 is kind of a number that sticks with people's heads, so we left them the same. We used historical data to do this, so this was not predictive in value. This is very much a look back feature. So if we can predict what the team is going to do in the future as a result of looking in the past, that's the use case here. Great, so can we flip back to the computer? All right, so what we have here is just one particular large project team which happens to have a number of underlying Scrum teams associated to them. And what you can see here plotted in this view is how many features have those teams delivered over the period of time that we measured. What cluster analysis then has done for us is it took all of the features, in this case there are 50 of them for this particular team, and then it plotted them against the five categories in the cluster analysis. And what you see here now are the cluster midpoints. Those cluster midpoints are basically, those correlate with the extra small, small, medium, extra large, and extra large. And then you can see, so those are your midpoints of user stories. So this team does a lot of features of a small size of 2, which is great for Agile software delivery. And then they trail down significantly from there into some of the others. What's nice about this team in particular is you can see that they don't develop many things up at this sort of large feature size, but they did a couple, no big deal. This team is a little bit unusual as compared to others. This one, hey, similar pattern, although you can see the feature sizes are considerably bigger in the small and the medium size buckets. That's the nice thing about the cluster analysis is you're able to define it on the level that makes sense for your organization to get worthwhile information. In our case, we thought it was at the Scrum team level. Let me go one more team on here. I want to show you a doozy. Where is it? Oh, that's not it. 1 second. No. Well, man, some of these guys, 110, I mean, that should be an epic, right? That shouldn't be a feature. So you get the point. These are the clusters. If the team, what's nice about, of course, Domo is the ability to drill right through to the data. We enabled that with this particular analysis, so people can very quickly discern what were those things that have been built. And as many of you Domo users know, it's real easy to, pitch it out of here, send it out, and share it. So that was cluster analysis. Can we go back to the deck, please? The next level that we're implementing on top of that data, it so happens we have this information. We've struggled with it. We've struggled to do cost per feature. Cost per feature for us is a mechanism where we take all the build charges that have been rolled up by our IT organization and then build back to the business who pays for it. What we do is we take that information and then we basically allocate it based upon relative number of story points accepted in that particular period of time. And then we cost out each individual feature within that month. So what we have now is we have an actual cost per feature that we've derived, and we have all of these features assigned to clusters. The next step that we're going to take in this is we're going to say, great, let's take a look at the average cost per point by cluster. What's important there is that we think, the hypothesis that we have is that some teams are actually more cost efficient in delivering large features. That is a little contrarian to the philosophy of Agile software delivery. But let's face it, philosophy is one thing, the real world is something different. So it's through the use of, real data, straightforward data analytics, in this case, k-means clustering for the clusters, and then a little bit of simple allocation that we're doing from the cost data, and I think we'll be able to provide some real neat insight back to the business. So I'm afraid I don't have that to show you here today, but it's going to be really cool once we deliver it. All right, so remember I was telling you about how the stage of the work is also an issue? Boy, we grappled with this for a while. We had a couple of misfires on my team. We couldn't seem to get two things together. We could see all the features that were done, and then we wanted to compare them to the features that were not done. And having two things side by side was kind of nice, but why can't we get them together? We just couldn't figure out a way to get them together. Luckily, we had an account team who had terrific resource here within Domo on our account team who helped us achieve this. And what we ended up doing is we went ahead and analytically decided or analytically derived these feature statuses. So these are the new ones that we came up with. So a feature in planning is anything that does not have a plan estimate. A feature in grooming has points but is not assigned to a release. Something with points and in a release is in backlog, and of course in progress and then done. Can we flip back to the deck, to the computer? Where did this go? Yep, so here it is. Okay, so as a result of doing that, what we have been able to accomplish with this new analysis is a comparison of features done with points as the sum count that you see on the blue bars. Features done, and this is sort of work done, work employed by the and user story points accepted by the Agile Scrum teams. And we've added up all of those points over the last 6 months. So those are your blue bars. And then the comparison that you get in the stack bar next to it is the sum total of the points that are in planning and at different stages of doneness with the one on the right. Conceptually, teams are supposed to have backlogs of at least 6 months. So this chart, I think, very easily calls out some of those teams who are not yet at that point. Whereas in some other teams' cases, like this one way here on the far left, you can see that their backlog is about double what they produce over the last 6 months. What's nice about Domo, of course, is its ability to drill into finer levels of detail. I think you probably know by now that we measure everything down at the team level. I was just showing you kind of like a portfolio level. Well, this level here is the next level down within our Agile delivery, and it's called program. Program's not the team. So at the team level, we have all this information, and now we're able to roll it all the way back up to see how the program is doing, how well the business overall is looking. And this is calling out some pretty obvious deficiencies for this particular team. These two over here, you can see very quickly, do not have adequate backlog compared to what they've produced over the prior 6 months. This is live data. We have it coming in on a nightly basis. Can we flip back to the PowerPoint, please? Great. So what did I show you? It's a quick review of some of the things that we've been able to succeed with implementing in Domo. The first is that by using the cluster analysis, we're able to show the build patterns in terms of where it is that teams normally like to build in terms of the size of the features. And also gives not only the product people but the business folks some sense as to the time it might take. We also track time to build. I have an associate in the room who does a better job of it than me, so we generally utilize his information. But very helpful to know where you've been and where a team is comfortable. Secondly, the backlog now, doing it via SQL and doing a much more analytical view of the backlog, we feel is a much cleaner and much more reliable. Frankly, not only transparent, but basically reliable and credible source to show how things are progressing through the funnel. And then lastly, the costing that we've been doing through Magic ETL, I was kind of chuckling when I was looking at some of the session titles. One of them was talking about how you can do a more efficient job of your transformation in ETL. And this particular one, I would not submit is on the best practice list. But we got the job done, and the team has been successful with it. At the end of the day, the impact on our customers has been really what we've hoped for. So this particular guy who's kind of a bridge person in between the business and our technical team, this is something that he said, and we've been promoting it widely. Outcomes we've had as a result of this work in Domo, again, like I say at the top, admittedly a work in progress. We've been getting a whole lot more objective information, a whole lot more trusted sources of truth forward for the business to understand where we're at. Secondly, it means that we're invited into more upstream conversations for planning in terms of what is it that the business needs and would like to have. And then lastly, and the thing that we're desperate to get to, is to be a real technology partner to our business versus just a delivery organization. So, questions? Thank you for your time.
Hi, so you've done 1D k-means clustering on the amount of story points for a feature. My question is why you decided to do that on the team level as opposed to the aggregate level?
Yeah, fine question. The reason for that is that we find that the habits of a team are really specific to that team as opposed to the parent program. There's obviously different domains of expertise where the developers are focusing their efforts, and we thought by extracting it up to a parent program level, you would lose insight as to some of those real patterns that were happening down at the team.
And so maybe a follow-up question would be, let's say that you have a team that only produces features with under 20 story points, and they only produce small features. When you do a 5 bucket at k-means clustering, it's going to say maybe that they produce only large features, even though compared to other teams, they would only produce small features.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if you're doing it on the team level, if you have a team that only produces small features, and then in comparison to every other team in the company, they produce small features. When you're producing this algorithm on the team level, this team could look like they produce only large features, where it's the opposite case.
Oh, well, the good news is that at no point is there a standard company-wide in terms of what's small versus large. It doesn't make a difference. It really is relative to the particular Agile delivery team that is doing the work. And so it's meant to be a helpful tool that the product and the technology people are able to collaborate around the results in order to figure out, well, hey, do we have time to maybe bucket some of those smaller features into larger things, or should we maybe take some of these really big things that we've been building and break them down into smaller pieces so that we can get them out the door more quickly.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Just a quick one, really. Just in practical terms, are you using the tiles and the data flow for your clustering, or are you exporting and having that model done in Python or?
Yeah, no, we're using the feature right within Domo itself. So we've got the data science. I guess it's called the data science package, is what it is, and this is one of those. This is one of those features included in it.
Okay, yeah. Thanks very much.
Yep, real easy to implement. I think the team did it in like two days. It's fast.
Thank you.
By the way, it is a fee per package. It's not included in the platform. Great. Well, feel free to come up and I'll hang around if there's any additional questions. Thanks so much.